This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Val Grimm. Selections from Riley Child Rhymes by James Whitcomb Riley. Little Orphant Annie. Little orphan Annies come to our house to stay, and wash the cups and saucers up and brush the crumbs away, and shoo the chickens off the porch and dust the hearth and sweep, and make the fire and bake the bread and earn her board and keep. And all us other children, when the supper things is done, we set around the kitchen fire and has the mostest fun, a-listenin' to the witch tales that Annie tells about, and the goblins it gets you if you don't watch out. Once there was a little boy wouldn't say his prayers, so when he went to bed at night away upstairs, his mammy heard him baller and his daddy heard him bawl, and when they turned the covers down he wasn't there at all. And they seeked him in the rafter room and cubby hole and press, and seeked him up the chimney flue and everywheres, I guess. But all they ever found was this his pants and roundabout, and the goblins'll get you if you don't watch out. And one time a little girl at allus laugh and grin, and make fun of everyone and all her blood and kin. And onct when they was company and old folks was there, she mocked 'em and she shocked 'em and she said she didn't care. And this as she kicked her heels and turned to run and hide, there was two great big black things a-standin' by her side, and they snatched her through the ceiling 'fore she knowed what she's about. And the goblins'll get you if you don't watch out. And little Orphant Annie says when the blaze is blue, and the lamp wick sputters, and the wind goes woo-woo, and you hear the crickets quit, and the moon is gray, and the lightnin' bugs and dew is all squinched away, you better mind your parents, and your teachers fond and dear, and cherish 'em that loves you, and dry the orphant's tear, and help a poor and needy ones it clusters all about, ere the goblins'll get you if you don't watch out. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Val Grimm. Selections from Riley Child Rhymes by James Whitcomb Riley.
The Raggedy Man. Oh, the Raggedy Man, he works for Pa, and he's the goodest man ever you saw. He comes to our house every day, and waters the horses, and feeds 'em hay, and he opens the shed, and we all is laugh when he drives out our little old wobbly calf. And then, if our hired girl says he can, he milks the cow for Elizabeth Ann. Ain't he an awful good Raggedy Man? Raggedy, Raggedy, Raggedy Man. Why, the Raggedy Man, he is so good, he splits the kindlin' and chops the wood, and then he spades in our garden, too, and does most things that boys can't do. He climbed up clean our big tree, and shook an apple down for me, and 'nother'n too for Elizabeth Ann, another'n too for the Raggedy Man. Ain't he an awful kind Raggedy Man? Raggedy, Raggedy, Raggedy Man. And the Raggedy Man, he knows most rhymes, and tells 'em if I be good sometimes. Knows 'bout giants, and griffins, and elves, and the squeedgecum-squees that swallers themselves. And right by the pump in our pasture lot, he showed me the hole 'at the Wunks has got. It lives way deep in the ground and can turn into me, or Elizabeth Ann. Ain't he a funny old Raggedy Man? Raggedy, Raggedy, Raggedy Man. The Raggedy Man, one time when he was making a little bow and arrow for me, says, "When you're big like your pa is, are you gonna keep a fine star like his, and be a rich merchant, and wear fine clothes? Er what are you gonna be, goodness knows?" And then he laughed at Elizabeth Ann. And I says, "I'm going to be a Raggedy Man. I's gonna go be a Raggedy Man. Raggedy, Raggedy, Raggedy Man."
End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Val Grimm. Selections from Riley Child Rhymes by James Whitcomb Riley.
Curly Locks. Curly locks, wilt thou be mine? Thou shalt not wash the dishes, nor yet feed the swine, but sit on a cushion, and sew a fine seam, and feast upon strawberries, sugar, and cream. Curly locks, wilt thou be mine? The throb of my heart is in every line, and the pulse of a passion is airy and glad, its musical beat as a little prince had. Thou shalt not wash the dishes, nor yet feed the swine. Oh, I'll dapple thy hands with these kisses of mine, till the pink of the nail of each finger shall be as a little pet blush in full blossom for me. But sit on a cushion and sew a fine seam, and thou shalt have fabric as fair as a dream, the red of my veins and the white of my love, and the gold of my joy for the braiding thereof. And feast upon strawberries, sugar, and cream, from a service of silver with jewels agleam. At thy feet will I bide, at thy beck will I rise, and twinkle my soul in the light of thine eyes. Curly locks, wilt thou be mine? Thou shalt not wash the dishes, nor yet feed the swine, but sit on a cushion and sew a fine seam, and feast upon strawberries, sugar, and cream.
End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Val Grimm. Selections from Riley Child Rhymes by James Whitcomb Riley.
The Bumblebee. You better not fool with the bumblebee. Ef you don't think they can sting, you'll see. They're lazy to look at and kind o' go buzzin' and bummin' around so slow, and act so slouchy and all fagged out, danglin' their legs as they drone about the hollyhocks, and they can't climb in without his tumblin' out again. Onct I watched one climb clean way in a jimson blossom, I did one day, and I just grabbed it and then let go. And oh, honey, I told you so, says the Raggedy Man, and he just run and pulled out the stinger, and don't laugh none, and says, "They has been folks, I guess, that thought I was prejudiced, more or less, yet I still maintain at a bumblebee wears out his welcome too quick for me." Recording by Val Grimm.
End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Val Grimm. Selections from Riley Child Rhymes by James Whitcomb Riley.
The Squirtgun Uncle maked me. Uncle Sidney, when he was here, maked me a squirtgun out of some elder bushes that growed out near where was the brickyard, way out clear to where the toll gate come. So when we walked back home again, he maked it out in our woodhouse where was the old workbench, and the old jack plane, and the old poke shave, and the tools all layin' like he wants them there. He sawed it first with the old hand saw, and then he peeled off the bark, and got some glass and scraped it, and told 'bout Pa when he was a boy and fooled his ma, and the whoopin' it he caught. Nen Uncle Sidney, he took and filed an old iron ramrod, and one of the ends he screwed fast into the vise, and smiled, thinkin', he said, o' when he was a child, for him and Pa was men's. He punched out the peth, and then he put a plug in the end with a hole notched through, and then took out the old drawy knife and cut and maked a handle that shoved clean shut, but just where your hand held through. And he wrapped the other end with some string and white piece of the sleeve of an old torn shirt, and then he showed me how to hold it tight and suck in the water and work it right, and it is squirt and squirt.
End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Val Grimm. Selections from Riley Child Rhymes by James Whitcomb Riley.
The Runaway Boy. Once I sassed my pa, and he won't stand that and punished me. Nen what he was gone that day, I slipped out and runned away. I tooked all my copper cents and clumbed over all back fence, and the jimpson weeds that growed everywhere all down the road. Nen I got down there, and nen I run some and runned again, when I met a man that led a big cow that shook her head. I went down a long, long lane where there was little pigs a-playin', and a great big pig went boo and jumped up and scared me too. And then I scampered past, and they was somebody hollered, "Hey!" and I just looked everywhere, and there was nobody there. I want to, but I'm afraid to try to go back, and by something hurts my throat inside, and I want my ma and cried. And then a great big girl come through, where's a gate, and told me, who am I? And if I tell where my home's at, she'll show me there. But I couldn't just but tell what's my name. And she says, well, and she tooked me up, and she says she know where I live, she guess. And then she told me hug white close round her neck, and off she goes skipping up the street, and then pretty soon I'm home again. And my ma, when she kissed me, kissed the big girl too, and she kissed me, Ef I promise sure I won't run away no more.
End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Val Grimm. Selections from Riley Child Rhymes by James Whitcomb Riley.
The Little Coat. Here's his ragged roundabout, turn the pockets inside out. See his penknife lost to use, rusted shut with apple juice. Here with marbles, top, and string is his deadly devil sling, with its rubber limp at last as the sparrows of the past. Beeswax, buckles, leather straps, bullets, and a box of caps. Not a thing of all, I guess, but betrays some waywardness. E'en these tickets, blue and red, for the Bible verses said, such as this his memory kept, Jesus wept. Here's a fishing hook and line, tangled up with wire and twine, and dead angleworms and some slegs of lead and chewing gum, blent with scents that can but come from the oil of rhodium. Here a soiled yet dainty note that some little sweetheart wrote, dotting, vine goes round the stump, and my sweetest sugar lump. Wrapped in this a padlock key, where he's filed a touch-hole, see? And some powder and a quill, corked up with a liver pill, and a spongy little chunk of punk. Here's the little coat, but oh, where is he we've censured so? Don't you hear us calling, dear? Back, come back, and never fear. You may wander where you will, over orchard, field, and hill. You may kill the birds, or do anything that pleases you. Ah, this empty coat of his, every tatter worth a kiss, every stain as pure instead as the white stars overhead. And the pockets homes were they, of the little hands that play, now no more, but absent thus, beckon us.
End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Val Grimm. Selections from Riley Child Rhymes by James Whitcomb Riley.
The 9 Little Goblins. They all climbed up on a high board fence, 9 little goblins with green glass eyes, 9 little goblins that had no sense and couldn't tell coppers from cold mince pies. And they all climbed up in the fence and sat, and I asked them what they were staring at. And the first one said, as he scratched his head with a queer little arm that reached out of his ear and rasped his claws and his hair so red, "This is what this little arm is for." And he scratched and stared, and the next one said, "How on earth do you scratch your head?" And he laughed like the screech of a rusty hinge, laughed and laughed till his face grew black, and when he choked with a final twinge of his stifling laughter, he thumped his back with a fist that grew on the end of his tail till the breath came back to his lips so pale. And the third little goblin leered around at me, and there were no lids on his eyes at all. And he clucked one eye, and he says he, "What is the style of your socks this fall?" And he clapped his heels, and I sighed to see that he had hands where his feet should be. Then a bald-faced goblin, gray and grim, bowed his head, and I saw him slip his eyebrows off as I looked at him and paste them over his upper lip. And then he moaned in remorseful pain, would I me brows again?" And then the whole of the goblin band rocked on the fence-top to and fro, and clung in a long row, hand in hand, singing the songs that they used to know, singing the songs that their grandsires sung in the goo-goo days of the goblin tongue. And ever they kept their green glass eyes fixed on me with a stony stare, till my own grew glazed with a dread surmise, and my hat whooped up on my lifted hair, and I felt the heart in my breast snap too, as you've heard the lid of a snuff-box do. And they sang, "You're asleep, there is no board fence, and never a goblin with green glass eyes. 'Tis only vision the mind invents after a supper of cold mince pies. And you're doomed to dream this way," they said, "and you shan't wake up till you're clean plumb dead."
End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Val Grimm. Selections from Riley Child Rhymes by James Whitcomb Riley. Grandfather Squeers. "My grandfather Squeers," said the Raggedy Man, as he solemnly lighted his pipe and began, "the most indestructible man for his years and the grandest on earth was my grandfather Squeers. He said when he rounded his 70, 'I've the hang of it now and can do it again.' He had frozen his heels so repeatedly he could tell by them just what the weather would be, and would laugh and declare, while the almanac would most falsely prognosticate, he never could. Such a hale constitution had Grandfather Squeers that though he used navy for 60-odd years, he still chewed a dime's worth 6 days of the week, while the 7th he passed with a chew in each cheek. Then my Grandfather Squeers had a singular knack of sitting around on the small of his back, with his legs like letter Y stretched over the grate, wherein 'twas his custom to expectorate. He was fond of tobacco in manifold ways, and would sit on the doorstep of sunshiny days, and smoke leaf tobacco he'd raised strictly for the pipe he'd used all through the Mexican War. And the Raggedy Man said, refilling the bowl of his own pipe and leisurely picking a coal from the stove with his finger and thumb, "You can see what a tenacious habit he's fastened on me." And my Grandfather Squeers took a special delight in pruning his corns every Saturday night with a horn-handled razor whose age he excused by saying 'twas one that his grandfather used. And though deeply etched in the haft of the same was the ever-euphonious Wolstenholme's name, 'twas my grandfather's custom to boast of the blade as a Seth Thomas razor, the best ever made. No old settlers' meeting or pioneers' fair was complete without Grandfather Squeers in the chair to lead off the program for telling folks how he used to shoot deer where the courthouse stands now. How he felt of a truth to live over the past, when the country was wild and unbroken and vast, that the little log cabin was just plenty fine for himself, his companion, and family of 9, when they didn't even have a pump or a tin, but drunk surface water, year out and year in, from the old-fashioned gourd that was sweeter, by odds, than the goblets of gold at the lips of the gods. Then the Raggedy Man paused to plaintively say it was clocking along towards the close of the day, and he ought to get back to his work on the lawn. Then dreamily blubbered his pipe and went on. His teeth were imperfect, my grandfather owned, that he couldn't eat oysters unless they were boned, and his eyes were so weak and so feeble of sight he couldn't sleep with them unless every night he put on his spectacles, all he possessed, 3 pairs with his goggles on top of the rest. And my grandfather always, retiring at night, blew down the lamp chimney to put out the light. Then he'd curl up on edge like a shaving in bed, and puff and smoke pipes in his sleep, it is said, and would snore oftentimes, as the legends relate, till his folks were wrought up to a terrible state. Then he'd snort and rear up and roll over, and there, in the subsequent hush, they could hear him chew air. And so glaringly bald was the top of his head, that many's the time he as musingly said, as his eyes journeyed over its reflex in the glass, I must set out a few signs to keep off the grass. So remarkably deaf was my grandfather Squeers that he had to wear lightning rods over his ears to even hear thunder, and sometimes then he was forced to request it to thunder again.
End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Val Grimm. Selections from Riley Child Rhymes by James Whitcomb Riley.
A Life Lesson. There, little girl, don't cry. They have broken your doll, I know, and your tea set blue, and your playhouse too, are things of the long ago. But childish troubles will soon pass by. There, little girl, don't cry. There, little girl, don't cry. They have broken your slate, I know, and the glad wild ways of your schoolgirl days are things of the long ago. But life and love will soon come by. There, little girl, don't cry. There, little girl, don't cry. They have broken your heart, I know, and the rainbow gleams of your youthful dreams are things of the long ago. But heaven holds all for which you sigh. There, little girl, don't cry.
End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. End of selections from Riley Child Rhymes by James Whitcomb Riley.